everyone, it's Sarah and welcome to my crochet channel. Today's video I'm going to show you how to crochet the Winter's Sky hood. It's a fun and easy crochet pattern and it has 3 cute pom-poms. Now this pattern will fit a youth to adult with head sizes about 20 to 22 inches and even bigger. It's very stretchy, and so it has lots of possibilities to fit even bigger heads. Now you can find this crochet pattern on my blog, and I'll put that blog link down in the notes underneath this video. To make the Winter Sky hood, you're going to need about 5 ounces of a bulky number 5 yarn. I'm going to be using Premier Puzzle, and the name of this yarn is called a cross stick. And we chose these colors because they're blue and cream and different shades that look like the sky in the winter. But of course you can use any colors that you want. This is a variegated, you can use a solid, but this is what we're going to be using. It is a bulky number 5 by Premier called Puzzle. You're also going to need 3 pom-poms, one for the end of each tie and then one for the top of the back of the hood. Now I made my own. I used this Go for Faux by Lion brand, and I made 3 pom-poms out of this sort of cream color. It's called Baked Alaska. You can make pom-poms out of your regular yarn. You can buy your pom-poms, or you can just make them off of this. Now I do have a video, and I'll put that up in the corner there so you can click on that if you want to know how I made my pom-poms with Go for Faux. But you're going to need 3 no matter how you make them or if you purchase them. We're going to be stitching today with our end hook, and this end hook is a 9mm 9.0 millimeter crochet hook. You'll need a needle for weaving in ends, and of course you'll need a pair of scissors. We're going to begin by stitching our slip knot, and then we're going to chain 52 chains. Now it's very important that you don't stitch your chains too tightly. We're going to stitch them just a little bit loose. And that's because we're going to be forming a rectangle to make our hood, and we don't want it to be puckered on that one side. All right, so we're going to stitch 52 chains. And remember, stitch them just a little bit loosely. I've chained my 52 chains. I chained them just a little bit loosely. And what we're going to do is we're going to begin stitching single crochets in our chains. So we're going to go to the second chain. We don't count the loop on our hook. Here's our first chain. We're going to stitch in the second chain from the hook and stitch a single crochet. And then we'll stitch a single crochet in each chain across. We'll go in, pull up a loop, yarn over, and go through both loops. And because we're stitching beginning in the second chain from the hook, we'll have 51 single crochets. One single crochet in each chain across, beginning in the second chain from the hook, and we'll work all the way across our chain. I've stitched 1 single crochet in each of the chains across, and remember, because we started in the second chain from the hook, we're going to have 51 single crochets. We're going to chain 1 and turn. And what we're going to be doing is stitching in the back loops only. So when you look at the top of your stitches, you have a loop on this side and a loop on this side. The loop that's on this side that's facing you is your front loop. The loops on this side that's facing away from you is your back loops. And we're going to be stitching in the back loops only. And the way this pattern or this row is going to work, our chain 1 does not count as a stitch, so we go in the first stitch, stitching in the back loop, and stitch a single crochet. We're going to chain 1. We're going to skip the next stitch and then single crochet in the back loop of the next stitch. And chain 1. And this is our repeat for this row. Chain 1, skip 1, single crochet in the back loop of the next single crochet. Chain 1, skip 1, and single crochet in the back loop of the next stitch. Whoops. And this is the way that it should look. And we're going to repeat this, working all the way across this row. I've chained 1, skip 1, single crochet in the back loop of the next stitch. Chain 1, skip 1, single crochet in the back loop of the next stitch, and repeat, working all the way across this row. I've completed this row of single crochet, chain 1, skip 1, and repeat, and your last stitch should be your single crochet, and we're going to chain 1 and turn. Now you're still going to have 51 stitches because we have our single crochets and our chain 1s, and it equals out to 51 stitches. Now what we're going to do for row 3 is we're going to repeat what we did on row 2. So our chain 1 does not count as a stitch. We'll go in the back loop of that first stitch, chain 1, skip the chain, and single crochet in the back loop of the next stitch. Chain 1, skip 1, single crochet in the back loop of the next stitch. Chain 1, skip 1, single crochet in the back loop of the next stitch, and repeat. Chain 1, skip 1, single crochet in the back loop of the next stitch. And again, we're just going to repeat this, working all the way across this row. I've completed that third row, stitching single crochet, chain 1, skip 1, single crochet, working in the back loops only. And so what we're going to do is we're going to repeat this row, which is row 2, for 21 more rows, so that we have a total of 24 rows. So we'll continue to repeat single crochet, chain 1, skip 1, working in the back loops only for 21 more rows. So I have repeated up through row 24. We did 3 rows and then we repeated for 21 more rows so that we have a total of 24 rows. And you're going to get a rectangle that measures approximately 22 inches long and about 12 inches tall. And I say about because remember, everybody stitches differently, and you may need to adjust your hook size or your gauge or your tension in order to get a rectangle that is 22 inches wide and about 12 inches tall. do not cut your yarn. What we're going to do is we're going to fold our hood over, because this is our hood portion, and then we're going to stitch the back together. I folded my hood over. Make sure you do that the long way, and now we're going to stitch up the back of the hood. So I'm going to put my hook in the first stitch on this side and the first stitch on this side, and grab that loop and pull it through. And now we're going to stitch slip stitches. So I'll go through this side and through this side, pull the loop through, then pull that loop through the loop that's on my hook. And make sure when you're stitching this closed that you don't stitch too tightly, because you don't want the back of your hood to be all puckered up. And you'll also notice that sometimes I'm going through one loop and sometimes I'm going through two. And it depends on whether you're going through a single crochet stitch or a chain stitch. It doesn't matter as long as you're closing up the back, if at times you go through one or two loops. And see how that looks? Alright, so I'm just going to continue across, stitching up the back of the hood. I finished stitching up the back of my hood. I'm to the end. After I make my last slip stitch, I'm going to chain one and tie off. And then we're going to take our hook to the inside and pull that to the inside of our hood. We'll grab our needle, thread that tail of yarn on there, there we go, and make sure you cut yourself off a good amount, 5 or 6 inches, so we can weave that in snugly. There we go. Now we have our hood formed, and we need to form the rest of our hood. We need to form the trim and the edges. The next thing we're going to do is put the bottom edge on our hood. So here is the back where we stitched it together. And we're going to start, and the best way to know where to start is where you began with your tail of yarn. Alright, and so what we're going to do is we're going to put our hook right in there, join our yarn back in. Alright, now what we're going to do, let me move that so you can see better, is we're going to place a single crochet in each of the ends of the rows. Alright, so we have to go into the end of each row and stitch a single crochet. And the way to know where to put that is when you look at it, you have indentations and you have ridges. And make sure you put one stitch in the indentation and one stitch in the ridge of the bottom of each row. And we have 24 rows, so you're going to have a total of 48 stitches because we folded it over and we'll be going across the entire bottom of our hood. Alright, so we'll go in the indentation, stitch a single crochet, then we'll go in the ridge and stitch a single crochet. working all the way across. And again, this is the bottom of our hood. One single crochet in the end of each row. And remember, we're going to have 24 on this side and then 24 on this side will give us a total of 48 single crochets. So I'll continue working across the bottom of my hood. Alrighty, I'm to where we joined. Get my hook in there. There we go. And I'll just go right to that next stitch and keep right on going across. There we go. Again, we're stitching one single crochet in the end of each of the rows. I completed that row of single crochets, stitching one in the end of each row. You should have 48 single crochets. We're going to chain one and turn. And now we're just going to place one single crochet in each of the stitches across. Our chain one does not count as a stitch, so we go right in our first single crochet and stitch one single crochet in each of the single crochets across. And we'll go all the way across the bottom of our hood. Stitching one single crochet in each single crochet all the way across, and then we'll chain one and turn. I completed that row of single crochet. I chained one and turned, and I'm just going to repeat what I just did. One single crochet in each of the single crochets across the bottom of my hood, working all the way back around, and I'll continue to stitch one single crochet in each of the single crochets around, till I get back around to where we started, and then we're going to tie off and work on the front trim of our hood. I've completed that third row of single crochet, so now the bottom of our hood is complete. Now we're going to stitch around the front of our hood. So what we're going to do is we're going to chain one and then stitch one single crochet in these 3 rows of our hood. 1, 2, 3. So we stitched a single crochet in the end of those 3 rows of single crochet. And now we're going to work around the front of our hood. And you'll notice this is our chain where we initially began. And remember, I told you to stitch it just a little bit loose, and that's because that's the opening where our head's going to go in. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to stitch similar how we stitch these rows. We're going to go in that first stitch and stitch a single crochet. We're going to chain one, skip the next, and single crochet in the next. chain 1, skip the next, single crochet in the next. And we'll do this all the way around the front of our hood opening. Chain 1, skip the next, and single crochet in the next. Chain 1, skip the next, and single crochet in the next. Whoops! And we'll do this working all the way around the front of our hood opening. I've stitched those repeats of single crochet, chain 1, skip 1, single crochet all the way around my hood opening. And now I'm to the bottom where those 3 rows of single crochet is. And so we're going to put a single crochet in the end of each of those 3 rows. We're going to chain 1 and turn. We turned, we chained 1, and now we're just going to repeat what we just did. 1 single crochet in these first 3 stitches, 1, 2, and 3. And then we're going to do our repeats. Single crochet, chain 1, skip 1, single crochet, chain 1, skip 1, but we're not doing the back loops only like we did on the rows. Single crochet, chain 1, skip 1, single crochet, working back around our hood. We'll continue working our single crochet, chain 1, skip 1 all the way back around till we reach these last 3 single crochets. I completed that second row of the single crochet, chain 1, skip 1. I'm down to these last 3 single crochets of our trim, and so I'm going to stitch those last 3, 1, 2, and 3 single crochets. I'm going to cut my yarn and tie off, and make sure you take your needle and weave in all your ends. We want them to be snugly and securely and hidden. Go through back and forth, going through fibers of your yarn if possible. All right, and now the hood portion is complete, and we need to make the ties and add the pom-poms. I've already made 1 tie and attached my pom-pom, and let me show you how we do that. This is the front corner of our hood, and I'm going to do the second one. And what you need to do is you need to cut 3 strands of yarn that you want to use. It doesn't have to match. It's up to you what you want to use. I'm using the same yarn, of course. And each of those 3 strands need to be about 36 inches long. All right, so we're going to take our crochet hook. We're going to go right down in the corner. And I like to make sure I go through that stitch just so that it stays secure. We're going to pull that through. Make sure they're even on the end. I've got one that's a little longer. That's not really going to matter because we're going to trim them also. And then we're going to move this forward so you can see what I'm doing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a strand from the front and the back and hold them together. So I've got 2 strands that I'm going to braid from the front and the back. And I'm just going to braid them. And if you want your strands to be thicker, you can add more strands of yarn if you want to. I think 3 of this one is fine. And we're going to braid it all the way down. Use my scissors to hold that. I don't want my... Now I'm to the bottom of my braid. I'm going to hold those all together and just tie a knot. Now, if you don't want to add a pom-pom, you don't have to. You can just trim them off and you've got a nice little tassel on the end of your tie. But if you want to add a pom-pom, you're going to attach it right above this knot. And when I add a pom-pom, I like to trim those off. I don't like those sticking out. This particular pom-pom has ties on it, and so I just take my crochet hook and I go through here and I'll pull the string through this way, and then I'll take the other string and I'll pull it the other way, going through some other strands at the bottom of my tie. Snug it down. Now, one thing I do is I tie a bow. I make sure it's nice and secure, but I also tie a bow. That way, if I want to wash the hat, I can, and I can just take the pom-poms off if I need to. Now, I would trim those to make it secure. And so there's 2 ties with 2 pom-poms. And then, of course, the last thing we need to do is add a pom-pom to the back of the hat. And so I'll just take my crochet hook, poke that through, and I'll grab 2 of those strands and pull it through. Make sure I got them there. There we go. And then I'm going to go to the other side of the top of that hat and pull those other 2 strands through. And then I do the same thing. I do what I call is a stay knot. It's just one time through. Then we tie a bow, and it's a nice secure bow, nice and snug. But that way, the pom-pom, if I need to wash the hood, can be washed by taking off those pom-poms. And so here is the finished hood with pom-poms. And again, remember, you can make your own pom-poms. There are several different ways, or you can make pom-poms that match out of the same yarn, or you can just go to the store and pick up a couple of furry ones. It's up to you.